What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Troy Talk podcast. We have another fun episode for you today. We are going to give a recap of the Premier League season, as well as talk about some predictions we made prior to the season. For those soccer fans, you're going to get some hard-hitting analysis and laugh at how wrong some of our preseason predictions were. For those that aren't soccer fans, you're going to get top-tier banter, and hopefully you'll learn something new and pick a team to root for at the end of it. Before we get into it, I want to remind you to follow the podcast on social media at Troy Talk Pod on Instagram, Twitter/X, and Blue Sky. You can also find the podcast on Spotify and pretty much any other podcasting network, and also on YouTube where the video version will be published. Please follow, like, subscribe on every platform out there so you don't miss any of the clips or the podcasts. It helps a bunch, and I'm looking to do a giveaway in the future if we can get the numbers up. So without further ado, I would like to finally introduce our guests. We finally made it out the group chat. First, we have David, who hails all the way from Cincinnati. He makes a mean pour-over coffee and is in the process of writing his first novel. David, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing really well. Thanks for having me, Troy. I actually finished it the other day, so finished my novel. I'm sending it off and hopefully gonna get it published here soon. So, and by soon, I mean timelines for publishing books are really long, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Um,
Get the ball rolling.
but hopefully, yeah, hopefully I'll be able to do that in the next like 1 or 2 years. The title is gonna be The Canary in the Holler.
Cool.
I wish I knew my social media plugs. I think my ideal self is like a post web version of me where
Ah, I
I
like
don't
it.
exist, so yeah.
Cool. All right, now we'll go to our next guest, another special guest. You may have seen her shredding her role as Kate on Netflix, The Fear Street trilogy. And for those fans of One Piece, you will see her in season 2 as Tashigi, coming to a TV screen near you. Joining us today is Julia Rehwald. Julia, how you doing?
Yay! I'm doing good. Happy to be here.
Good to hear. I think the funniest part of this podcast is going to be us pronouncing these names as Americans, because I think we all know American
Oh,
pronunciation of soccer players is the absolute worst. So bear with us.
thank
Um,
you.
so yeah, just to give kind of a background on how the group chat forms, so you can kind of get a summary of who everybody is here. I think it all started. I think it was 2022. I was asking Alexis the other day. Alexis and I went to Brooklyn. Julia is friends with Alexis from high school, so we met up with her, and I think just coincidentally we found out that we both supported Arsenal. I forgot if that was just like a random coincidence or we knew that going ahead. And then Julia had a friend. She said, "Can I bring a friend when we were going to watch one of the games together?" And that happened to be David. And then we ended up, I think, watching. We watched the game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I take full credit for that, for all that happening. But yeah, that's the background. We're a very active group chat, spamming on pretty much anything that's going on in the Premier League with Arsenal and Julia's fantasy soccer, which did not end up going well towards the end, unfortunately. But she'll probably bring that up later with some of her most disappointing players. It's probably gonna be somebody related to her fantasy team. I just have a feeling.
Rest in peace.
That's all right.
100%.
We'll get them next year.
Don't
All
worry,
right.
next
So
year.
yeah.
I mean,
So
I mean, compared to 2 years ago, wasn't your team really, really bad 2 years ago? And this year you were good, right?
Yes,
so we're making
exactly.
progress.
We're
We're making
making
progress.
progress.
And now she's a degenerate fantasy player like we all are. Um, so the way this is going to work is we made some predictions before the season, basically just predicted the whole table 1 through 20 of where we thought teams were going to land. And we're going to go through each team starting from 20th place all the way up to first place, and then kind of give our thoughts on the team, if anything comes to mind that we want to bring up or that surprised us, or any players that we wanted to bring up. We'll do it at that time. And then I'm going to keep a point tally, which I will kind of periodically talk about as we go. And the way the score is going to work is if you get the exact predicted finish, so for example, if I predicted somebody 20th and they ended up 20th, you get 5 points. You get 3 points if it's in within one place, so you could either be like, if it was 18th, it could be 17th or 19th, and then 2 points for within 3 places, 1 point within 5 places. And then we're going to end up tallying it at the end and see who wins. And then after that, basically just going to talk some soccer, some postseason awards like MVPs, breakout players, most underrated players, things like that. Talk maybe a little bit on some miscellaneous topics, and then finally, for those Arsenal fans, we'll keep it at the end. So if you're not an Arsenal fan, you can listen to this. We'll just talk a little bit about what we're going to see from them next year and kind of what we're excited about. So let's start with the one that we all got right, and it was the only one that we all got right. Southampton.
Uh,
So yeah, that's who Arsenal played today. it was kind of Arsenal's B team, but still they always kind of give us some trouble. But I think we all expected them to finish last, but I'm curious as to why you guys picked them like instead of Ipswich or somebody else.
Yeah, I mean, at least personally, I think part of the reason I picked them last is because I knew the least about them.
Mm,
I think when it came to the teams getting promoted, I knew Ipswich had Kieran McKenna, and everyone was
mhm.
talking really highly of Kieran McKenna. I saw, Leicester, like obviously while they had been in the championship, they kind of walked the championship. So I thought, okay, well, if anyone's gonna stay up of the three, like maybe it would be Leicester. So I actually had them as staying up. But yeah, so I had Southampton near the bottom, unfortunately.
Yeah, and then you brought up Ipswich. That's who finished 19th, and this
Yes.
one we almost all got. Julia was
I'm sorry.
much more auspicious of Ipswich. She predicted, I think, let's see,
I
19th.
thought they were
What is
staying
it?
up.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you picked
And
them
I
to be
remember
17th.
that. I
Yeah.
remember that decision absolutely having like no grounds for it.
Mm-hmm.
And I just went, I'll be a little different. And simply didn't pan out.
Yeah, I think you see some of these teams that, like David was saying, that do really well in the championship. They try to play the same way in
Yeah.
the Premier League, and it doesn't work like that. Unfortunately, not many teams can do that. I think you saw like Norwich a couple years ago try to do that, and they just
Yes.
got
Yeah.
blasted. Like they won occasionally. They beat City, I think, a couple times, but they lost the majority of their games. So I think that's kind of what happened with Ipswich this year, who finished 19th. Um, but
I did
yeah,
really enjoy Delap.
yeah.
Look,
I thought
yeah.
watching Delap was really fun. I guess just from the perspective of like, I don't know, like it's always nice to see a young player just really tear it up, and I feel like he really did that. No, I don't know that anyone was really talking about him or expecting him to do
Mhm.
anything prior to the season.
Yeah, I wonder where he's going to go because really doubt that
Hmm.
he stays with Ipswich.
He's
And Man U
going somewhere for
Man U
sure.
just signed Cunha, so we'll get to that. 'Cause they
What?
coincidentally, yeah, they just announced it.
Oh
Breaking
wow,
breaking news.
that's a big signing.
Yeah, with
You're
all the money they
kidding
don't
me.
have,
You look, yeah,
they had to fire like another 100 people from their organization to afford that signing.
Wait, what? That's
Yeah, I saw it on
crazy.
Instagram. I mean, it could have been a. Let's fact check while we're on the pod. I
That
don't know how much it
is
was.
so silly for
Yeah,
both
5 year
parties,
deal.
but
So I mean, we'll get to Wolves and Man U, but I
okay,
mean, I
we'll
think you
get
bring
there.
up,
oh,
yeah, you
this
bring
is
up
my
a good
cat.
point.
He's gonna be around.
Oh, that's totally fine. Um, you bring up a good point with the lap. I mean, I think you see a lot of these teams have like one person who really shines, and then they end up going down, and then that one person ends up staying in the Premier League because they showed that they could play there, and other teams want them. It's just kind
Yeah.
of the unfortunate reality of being a relegation side.
Not to backtrack, but
Hmm.
I'm also really bummed to see um, Ramsdale go down with Southampton. I mean,
Yeah,
I imagine like he's a
Mhm.
prem caliber keeper, but the Arsenal fan in me is just sad to see it.
it is a bummer. I actually don't. I don't know how he did this year. I actually didn't really pay attention too much to like the actual goalie stats. I don't know if it was so much him or just Southampton just not being as good.
No, I mean, from what I understood, he was good.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I would think he stays. I don't know if there's anybody else looking for a goalkeeper. Probably gets him
Yeah, I don't
promoted again
know.
next year or something. Um, okay, so the score, I'll periodically do it every two or three teams. It's I think 10-7. So Dave and I are tied at 10. And this is where it starts to kind of go off the rails here. So Leicester's next. Another one we were all pretty much in agreement with, I think. I had them at 18th. Uh, let's see. Or no, I had them at 16th. They finished 18th. David had them at 17th, and Julia had them at 19th. So I was definitely a little bit more um,
Optimistic.
yeah, optimistic of them just because they have the pedigree, obviously won the league, and they've shown they can be there. But I just don't know what it is with them because they have good players. They just
We
I feel like
do.
Yeah,
they could have done better this year. I don't really fully understand that.
yeah. I have the exact same impression. Like I don't
Hmm.
really. Maybe I just need to keep a closer eye on Leicester to understand. But yeah, I mean, I had the same thought. Like they have good players. I don't know. I don't know what their issue is.
I mean, I think one thing they lost the coach right to Chelsea. That's probably
Yeah.
I'd probably made that without thinking about that because I mean losing your manager is a pretty big thing, for better or for worse. Okay, so not too much about those. So that's the bottom three. Those are the relegation teams: Southampton, Ipswich, and Leicester. And off the top of my head, it was Sunderland. What was the other teams that got up? Do you remember?
Leeds.
Oh,
Leeds. Leeds, Sunderland, and who? I forgot. But Sunderland made like a magical run, so it'll be nice to see them in the Prem. They haven't been there in a minute.
Oh wait, who's come? What was the question? Who's promoted?
Yeah.
Oh, I misheard. I don't know who's promoted.
Well, you were right. I think Leeds for sure.
Oh, love
Yeah,
that.
I've heard that too. I don't
think
know
they
who the
won the
other
league.
person is though.
But I don't remember who the second one is.
Burnley.
Okay. Burnley. Oh, of course. The
Burnley
flip flopping. Yeah, you know. Okay, so who's next? Oh, lovely Spurs. We can talk about them.
Oh my God.
Man. So just for kind of clarification here, I predicted them to make Champions League, but by way of top 4, not by winning the Europa League. So I picked them to go 4th. David 6th, and Julia also 4th. So we were pretty high on Spurs coming into this year. What do you think went wrong?
I mean, I feel like I don't even know how to talk about them without repeating the same things that are always said about them.
Yeah, that's true.
Like they just like Andrew. I mean, I think their style of play is really like. Oh my God, I hate saying this as an Arsenal fan, but I think objectively speaking, their style of play is like cool and fun, and like I think if like a team that's uncompromising about just like playing really dynamic attacking football is really cool. But like when you have multiple seasons in a row where everyone gets hurt, like surely there has to come a point where like that's down to the manager not managing the squad very well, you know?
Yeah, no, I think that's true. And then when you don't play defensive football and you have a bunch of injuries, it's really hard to like get points out of a match. You know, you could lose a lot of games 4-1 because you're letting up a bunch of goals and you have nobody to score them. But I think the reason I was so high on them was I think the Solanke signing was really like exciting for me. Like, he killed it at Bournemouth. I mean, I don't think he did like horrible this year, but definitely not up to like the whatever $60 to $80 million signing that he, was. So I don't think he lived up to that potential. And I think Son definitely showed his age this year, just wasn't his same self. So like you said, if you play the attacking football without the actual pieces to, perform, it makes it a little difficult. But I do admit they are a little bit entertaining. Any other thoughts, Julie?
No, same. I think I was really expecting the Solanke signing to be... I do think it was really impactful and he was good, but I think it wasn't the level that we were both expecting it to be. Yeah, partnered with, I think, injuries and Son not really having... I also thought he was going to have a big season this season, which didn't happen. So I think it just ended up going the other way that I was predicting it would.
Yeah, and I mean, losing Harry Kane is tough, and I guess that's something I could have considered, but I thought Solanke was going to at least, I mean, probably not up to his level, but at least somewhat perform and give him a striker.
Yeah, same.
But, I we'll see if they're actually good next year. I'm wondering if Big Ainge is going to just stick to being stubborn and keep doing the same thing and says it's going to work this time, but I don't know, man. I don't know if that is going to work in the Premier League. It might work in Europa, and it might work a little bit in Champions League, but I don't know if that's going to work in Premier League.
Yeah, I wonder if like him kind of like in the Europa League final, he was a lot more defensive, and I think if you see him become more practical in that way in the league, like I think that would probably be pretty good for them. Like I feel like they dropped so many points from like tying or winning positions because they couldn't hold a lead because they were like. It was the 90th minute, and the whole team was in the opponent's box practically.
Yeah, I think he hasn't shown that he can be the ability to adapt. If he does that, I mean, I think he's a good manager. He's got to learn to kind of shape his team with whatever is in front of him. Okay, enough about Spurs. This is an Arsenal podcast. We'll talk about them a little bit later. But Wolves is actually one we almost got spot on. They finished 16th. And I predicted them to be 17th. David predicted on the dot 16th. Well done there. And Julie did 15th. So we were all within one or on the dot. So, I mean, I don't know. I think Wolves is one of those teams that, like, I don't think they're ever going to be good enough to be, like, really, really good. But they're always good enough to beat some teams. I think some of those teams in the bottom 3, I just don't see as good enough to beat some of the bigger teams. But Wolves, especially at Wolves, that can be a tough game. Whenever, even if they're down. I think you saw that this year. They beat some good teams, but also just lost to some really bad teams. All right, so that's enough about Wolves. We already talked about Cunha, which is a good segue, as the next team is Manchester United at 15th. So if you would have told me that Manchester United and Tottenham would have been 15th and 17th, respectively, at the beginning of this season, I would have called you crazy. But here we are. And this is another one where we all kind of were high on Man U, at least somewhat. I predict him to be 5th, David Champions League at 4th, and then Julia at 6th. So I guess I'll start with why were you guys so high on Man U this year?
I always have a soft spot for them, even if they've been a mess. But and what's funny is the players I have a soft spot for all is Rashford and Garnacho, and
So they're not even playing.
so ranked them high for reasons that ended up being so immensely irrelevant. But I think I saw at the end of last season, it seemed like what I was seeing was a glimpse of promise, and they're in rough shape, but there are moments in games where I'm oh, they could be on the precipice of a new era for them. And so I was thinking on the positive side that maybe that's where they were headed this season.
I shared that sentiment. I think, not that Ten Hag is Arteta, which he's not, but I saw, a manager who's had success elsewhere, who came in, tried to really implement his philosophy, had to get some signings, and you saw it kind of coming together at the end of last year. I remember we played him, I think, at Man U, and we needed to win, and it was we won 1-0, but it was one of the hardest matches for us last year, and we barely won that. So I was wow, this is, a team that's, I think finally playing well under their manager. And I think him getting fired halfway through the season, whether that was the right or wrong thing, I think doomed him, and that's why you saw that, precipitous decline. Because while I think their new coach is good, I'm not sure. He kind of reminds me of just Ainge, in that he's very stubborn in his ways too, and he thought he could just take from the Portuguese league and implement that into the EPL, and that's not a thing. So I think that's what caused their decline. But any other thoughts, David?
Yeah, I agree. I thought they were pretty aggressively mid last year. I feel like they definitely earned 8th place, But with that said, I thought, oh well, give them a summer to work out their issues. That's time on the training ground that they can work on things with. But then I thought the first part of the season, they had this weird setup where they were trying to play with, I think, a 4-back and then one man in the midfield, and then the rest of the team, or maybe it was even 3-back and then one midfielder and Casemiro, and then they were pushing a fullback forward, and then they were all right, old as dirt Casemiro, we want you to cover 60 yards of field. I wasn't watching them all the time, so I didn't have a super strong opinion, but from the times that I did watch them, I was that doesn't, I'm no expert, but that's not, it didn't seem like that was working to me. But then I don't know what, once you've got to halfway through the year, I don't know that the best solution is then to bring in a coach that'll tell your team to play in a completely different way than they've been playing for the last couple of years. I kind of same as you, it feels like they're just, it feels like they're kind of doing the same thing that they did with Ten Hag, where they bring in a guy who's had some success, and now they've got another guy who's had some success, but in a weaker league, and he doesn't have players to really play his system. Except I would say this time it's even worse, because at least I think Ole Gunnar Solskjaer played a 4-2-3-1, and so did Ten Hag, and now Amarim's doing something completely different. So I don't know. They're a dumpster fire.
Yeah, they got. Money wise, we were talking about that a little earlier. They're poor.
Yeah.
They somehow signed Cunha. I don't know how they did that.
Their training grounds are falling apart.
Yeah, there's rats, and the food is there's stuff in the food. It's not good, but
no, I can't.
And it's even worse.
That makes for a good environment to become a solid team.
No, definitely not a good culture there right now. But we'll see if they turn it around next year. I'm definitely not going to predict them to make Champions League next year. That's for sure.
Also, LOL at Anthony balling out at Real Betis.
Yeah, that's
crazy.
McTominay.
Yeah, he won the league.
Are you kidding?
Yeah.
I know.
Who else? Rashford's even been good for Aston Villa.
Technically qualified for Champions League, right?
Yeah.
They missed it. No. Wait, did they miss it?
They just missed it. Yeah. Because of the crazy disallowed goal.
Yeah, that's tough. Yeah, we'll get to that later. All right, so let's move on. We got a couple. West Ham and Everton are pretty boring teams, but West Ham's 14th, Everton's 13th. pretty close on these actually for us, except for West Ham. You guys were a little bit more bullish on West Ham. Everton, we were all pretty mid on. David, once again, I believe, got Everton right on,
Wow.
which is impressive. I mean, these mid tables, it's
Thank
not
you.
easy to get right on. So,
Wow, David's killing it.
yeah, so he's quite a bit into the lead, and the next 5 or 6 is gonna even it out a little bit. But anyway, so I mean, West Ham, Moyes is back there, right? Am I misremembering that? Or
No, Moyes is at Everton
Moyes is at Everton,
now.
right? Because
Yes.
Deitch left, right? Okay, so who's at West Ham?
Yes.
That's why am I
Who
blanking?
knows?
Because I know this.
No, it's someone like that we've seen before. Anyway,
Yeah, it
but
is.
I think they had
it's
a
Graham Potter, isn't it?
Oh yeah,
yeah, it was Graham Potter. Yeah,
you're right.
So, I mean, I don't know. I didn't really have too much feelings about West Ham. I think they're kind of in a rut right now, in a lull. They have some good players, obviously, and
Jared
and everything,
Bowen,
but
that's my
I
guy.
know. But I just think they're a ways away. They're gonna kind of have to, I think, another 2-3 year rebuild. Everton, I mean, sometimes you see that team and it's like you just expect them to win 1-0 just because their defense
Yeah.
is so good and Pickford's so good, and then sometimes they just get blown out 4-1. So it just really depends on what team's there. I think Moyes did a good job at the end there. They kind of
Yeah, I mean they were on relegation form, weren't they?
Right, exactly. They beat Newcastle on the last day of the season, so that's pretty impressive. I think that was at Newcastle too, which is pretty insane. That's not an easy place to
Yeah,
play.
yeah, it was.
And they almost spoiled Newcastle's Champions League if it weren't for the Man U Villa game. But I don't know. You have any thoughts about Everton or West Ham, or you want to move to Palace? Because I have some thoughts about Palace.
Ooh, let's go to Palace then.
I think Palace are going to be this year's like I might predict them to be like 8th next year, maybe make Europa next year. I just think that they have a good coach, one, and they have a lot of good youngsters. And then if Mateta plays like Mateta played this year, honestly, little spoiler here, we're going to talk about breakout players, but I think he could be one too. I don't think anybody expected him to be as good as he was this year. And then you have Wharton in the defensive midfield, who's like a 20-year-old, 21-year-old, really good young player.
Chris Richards, American Chris Richards.
Yeah, Chris Richards. Yeah, exactly. I mean, they got some dudes there. Eze's really good. Always been a fan of his game. So I just think they showed some glimpses this year. I think they started off a little slow, but they finished the year pretty strong. And I mean, it was 1-1 against Liverpool today, so they played them pretty well, and then they won the FA Cup. So that's pretty cool. I mean, first time in league history or club history. That's pretty special. But curious to think if you guys are as high on Crystal Palace as I am.
Yeah, I think they were a surprise for me, and I am interested to see. I think they'll trend up again. I thought losing Olise last summer was going to have more of an impact than it did. And then instead, like, their attacking form is, like, really spot on.
I mean, we all predicted them mid-table. I just think maybe next year when we do this again, inevitably, I just feel like I might predict them closer to, like, where the Brightons and the Forests were this year, where I thought. We all picked Forest pretty low this year, but we'll get into that a little bit later. Next is Fulham. They finished 11th. David almost got this right on. He picked him 12th. I picked him 9th. I was pretty high on Fulham this year, and so was Julia.
I don't know if that was on Fulham.
Is that the Arsenal bias with Emil Smith-Rowe? I'm not sure, but I've always been a fan of their game. I think they have a really good coach.
Smith-Rowe,
Smith-Rowe,
Reece Nelson, Alex Iwobi.
I thought, I did think Fulham always looks so promising.
Mm-hmm.
I thought Smith-Rowe was really going to bolster them a bit. I love Anthony Robinson.
Yeah.
So, and it's weird because when I watch Fulham, it feels like they should be higher in the table than they are.
Yeah. I think the games that you don't watch them when they're playing like the the Leicesters or the Wolves or something is where they just inevitably falter and they drop points there. And because whenever you see them play, you see them play us, they always play us so well and like give us so much fits, and they beat the big teams sometimes as well. So I don't know. I think they'll continue on the trajectory as long as the coach stays. They got good players there, and as long as they can keep Anthony Robinson and all those players too, because I know there's talk about like the top 6 teams that want Anthony Robinson as their next left back.
I feel like someone's gonna try to get him.
Yeah, it's gonna be tough to keep him. They're either gonna have to give him a big pay raise or I don't know, maybe they'll give him a new contract and sell him in a year or something and make some profit. That's just being a mid-table team is tough. Right? You're not quite good enough to make it into the top 4 or top 6 for Europa money, but you're not quite bad enough to get relegated. So we'll see. I'm hopeful they'll finish in the top half next year, but we'll see. Okay, Brentford is next. This is one I got right on the dot. So 10th, which is I feel like Brentford is just like the most mid-team in the Premier League. And I don't even mean that as an insult. Like I think it's amazing that
No,
Brentford
yeah.
is even a mid team. Like with how they kind of came up with their Moneyball scheme and kind of rags to riches. But they're kind of similar to Fulham. You'll see them like just look so good against really good teams. They have a really good coach in Thomas Frank, but then you also just see them lose to like Ipswich or something like that, and lose 3-1, and you're like, where did that come from? So I mean, I've always been a fan of Brentford. I think I would probably pick them maybe as one of my teams to support if I didn't have wasn't supporting Arsenal. I just always really admired what they do. You guys have any thoughts on them?
Yeah, I have very similar thoughts. I just think like I think a team that spends a lot of time and energy trying to um, make small differences matter
Mm-hmm.
is a really like interesting and cool model in a league that is so dominated by big spending. And like obviously, they spend a lot of money too. You have to operate
Mm-hmm.
at this level, but like compared to everyone else, I think they're really shrewd. And then like Mbomo and
Mm.
Vissa and Tony when he was here are always gonna make it fun to watch too. So yeah,
Yep. And whatever or what is it? They Danish, whatever like Danish midfielder they have every year that somehow
yeah,
is
yeah.
really really good.
Is it Norgard or Damsgaard?
I think
Both.
both.
Well, oh my
They're both
gosh.
there. But yeah, they always just make the most out of nothing. So I really respect that.
Yeah,
Okay, so
I
this
think
one,
I think Wissa and Mbumo's partnership up front was
oh,
actually
so
a
good.
delight. I was like curious to see how it would go without Ivan Toney in the
Hmm.
picture, and I really actually enjoyed what the two of them were doing up front this season much
Yeah,
more.
I think they performed way above standards for offensively, and I think you might have seen them because like they what and Bueno had like 20 goals or something like that. Vista had like 16. It was some absurd numbers like that where they both
Yeah.
scored a lot. I think you saw them trying to take it to teams a little bit more than they used to, and maybe got punished a little bit for that. But I mean, I respect them trying to because I mean you're never going to know if you can be in that Europa League conversation or even Champions League conversation unless you really try. So it didn't seem like they were content about being a mid-table team. So I think if they continue to trust in Thomas Frank, I think they got a shot at Europa one of these years.
Totally.
Okay, next one. This one's a good one. Bournemouth. So um, they finished ninth, and we all picked them each picked them to be 18th. So I'll start with Julie on this one. Why did you pick them to be 18th?
I'm trying to remember. This was so long ago. I
I have a very
think
simple answer for this. It's just
why
Solanke
because
not being
like yeah,
there.
Yeah,
yeah,
same.
yeah, yeah. I
That's
think
literally it.
that must have been it. I think that was yeah.
And then Clivert turned it on this year.
And let me tell you, I knew he was going to.
Yeah. I mean, they've always been good, but like I was not expecting him to take that leap that he did. He had like a hat trick one of the games. Like he had some
He
games
got
where
a
he just
penalty hat
Yeah.
trick.
penalty hat trick. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
He was one
um,
of my most reliable fantasy league players this whole season was Kluivert.
yeah, he was very very good. And they just have like what was it? Semenyo is really good.
Semenyo.
They had Evan Nielsen, and I don't think I knew that they were going to get Evan Nielsen at the time that I made this prediction. I didn't think they were going to be able to replace Solanke with a pretty. I think he cost like 40, 50 mil if I recall correctly. So that wasn't that was they spent some money on that.
Mm.
But I don't know. They just seem to have players that outperform. I think their abilities. Like I don't know if that's the coaching or they just the philosophy, the culture there. But I mean, they whooped us when I went to the game in London. That was a very frustrating game to watch. But they played well. I mean, I wasn't
And they
mad about
had
it.
the defender who really popped off.
Yeah,
That
right. That's a good. Oh,
Turkish.
honestly, no. I don't know how to say his last name. Hulsen,
yes,
the
that
one that's
one.
Oh,
going to Madrid.
Howson,
Every
I think.
yeah,
Hausen, yeah.
every
That's a
club
good point.
wants him now.
Honestly, I would probably change my answer to the breakout player. Like you could argue him because like going to Madrid, like it's insane. I know he's
That's
Spanish, which
crazy.
is weird. He doesn't look Spanish, but
Spanish. Oh my
um,
gosh, I knew that.
yeah, he's like I might be like a dual national or something. But yeah, he was a monster. Commanded like a $60 million transfer fee. And definitely, I mean, with Kirkez, like you were saying, David, that's a good team. I probably hindsight's 2020, but I probably would have predicted them closer to like 10 or 12 if I would have done it over again. But they still outperformed what I thought they were going to do. So, any other thoughts on them, or you want to go to Brighton next?
I thought pretty much the same thing. Like I thought they were really well coached. Like
Yeah,
Yeah, they
I don't think like without Iriola they do
yeah,
that.
yeah. That's very true. So I'm gonna go next to a team that I used to really, really like, and I don't know why this year I just completely soured on him. I think it's the coach, Brighton. I picked him to be eighth. David also got this right on the nod. Or sorry, they finished eighth, and then David picked him to be eighth. I picked 10th, and Julian ninth. So we were all pretty close on that one. But I used to love Brighton, kind of similar to Brentford. They were kind of rags to riches. They would always pull some random South American dude, and he'd be like a superstar, and they'd sell him for 80 million. And I really liked the old coach. Graham Potter was cool, and then I actually really liked De Zerbi a lot too. But this new guy, I don't know what it is. I cannot stand him. I don't know. Remember what his name is. I think he's German or something. And I think ever since the what was it? That was the Rice red card, right? Yeah. I hated that. That was such a. Still get irritated about that. So I've just kind of soured on Brighton since then. But they're a good squad. I mean, they whooped on Spurs today, so that was nice. But curious as to. I mean, I think we were all pretty in unison to that. But do you think that they can kind of maybe get Europa next year? Or you think they're kind of just perennially mid-table, kind of like Brentford's been?
I don't know. I mean, they're losing Matoma.
Hmm.
I
Oh,
think,
really?
yeah,
Well, I think
Matoma's.
he's out of contract, right? Yeah.
I think it's like I heard Bayern. He might be going to Bayern Munich.
Ooh.
Um, I mean, João Pedro is a disaster and wants out
Yeah.
immediately, it seems, but I don't think they want to sell him. I think he was spectacular for them, but was also like such a liability.
Yeah.
And who is it? Is it someone? Is it who am I thinking of? Adingra's on loan, or was he?
No, he
signed?
actually played today. And then what's his name? The other African player. I just looked him up today. Oh my God, it'll come to me.
Mente?
But yeah, Minte. I thought he was really good. When I ever saw him play, like he was always making things happen. I know he didn't score that much. I think I saw he scored like 6 goals or something. But I always thought he was making stuff happen. So they have some exciting players. They do a really good job scouting. I think.
They're really, yeah, I think they're already making some interesting signings this
And then
past couple weeks for next season with young players.
and even to finish where they did without Ferguson basically the whole year, which he was supposed to be the next coming of Jesus Christ, right? Like with the like $100 million striker. That's me. Arsenal fans were like, "This is the guy I want." 120 million.
Yeah.
I don't care. Get a striker. And then like, I think, which we'll talk about this later, but that just shows you can't just shell out money at the new shiny thing and expect it to work. And I know
Wait,
injuries have kind of
isn't he at West Ham?
well on loan, right?
Oh
I
my
don't
God,
think did they
yes.
sell him?
No, it was loan. You're right.
Oh my God! If they sold him, I would have.
No, I think it was just a loan. I just remember
Okay.
that happening and me being confused
On
by
loan
that.
from Brighton. But yeah, you're
Yeah,
right. So I mean, like, if you would have told me that he would have been on loan at the at the end of the
no,
season, similar to Rashford, right? It's just like that didn't even
yeah,
cross my mind.
no.
But I don't know. I mean, I think the coach is good. He just irritates me. I think that the management is super good. The culture there is really good. So if they can find a way to kind of I know the what's his name, Hinchelwood is really good. I think they'll probably use him a little bit more next year. He scored 2 goals today. Well, I don't know. I think they're probably a couple years away from getting Europa or anything like that. But I mean, they're always going to be a mid-table team in my eyes. All right, what is next? Let's see. We have Forest. Ooh, okay. So this is another one we got pretty wrong. So Forest finished 7th and unfortunately just missed Champions League. I was rooting for him today.
I was
They
rooting for
needed,
them so
I
hard.
know, they needed to beat Chelsea and then they needed Newcastle to drop points, which they did. So unfortunate, but I mean they vastly outperformed all my expectations this year. They have a really expensive team and a really good team. I mean, if you actually look at the numbers, like they spent a lot of money on their team, so I guess it's not super surprising. But I was not expecting them to put it together this fast. So credit where credit is due. Do you guys have any thoughts on Forest?
Chris Wood
Yeah.
did not see that coming in the slightest.
No.
Yeah, that guy's
Also,
very effective.
yeah, I thought Elanga was
Hmm.
better than I thought he
Yeah.
was going to be. Who was it? Elliot Anderson was solid. Obviously, like Gibbs White is an excellent player. I think he's being linked to City,
Yeah.
which is
Kidding
interesting
me.
because, yeah,
I hate it.
it's interesting to me because like I feel like what makes him so good is he's kind of like one of those maverick type
Yeah,
players
no, that's
that
a really good point. That is
you
a really good
know,
point.
and I don't know. I would hate to see him become like Jack Grealish, who kind of was the same, and then they paid 100 million for him, and then he just like was the ball retention Jesus on the left
Yeah.
wing. You know, I thought Hudson, like it was cool to see Hudson Odoi like
Hmm.
contribute and start to kind of come of age a little bit, even though like he wasn't, like he wasn't the guy in the team, but like always down to see a young player perform. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
Aina.
yeah, like, and then Milankovic and Murillo were both really. I mean, I think they started the
Mhm.
season being very like defensive, and that's how they kind of won. And their goalkeeper obviously is a. I mean, you could argue that's a breakout player, winning the
Yeah,
golden gloves. I never even heard of the guy before this season, so he shared it with Raya this year. But I think just they did a really good job investing their money, and it seemed like pretty much everything they invested in paid off. Like everybody did exactly like what they expected the potential to hit. And I think you saw people like you said, Alanga, another Man U person who started balling out once he left Man U. Um, uh, something there. But yeah, they have a lot of good young talent, and I don't know if they can keep them, but maybe they just buy more good players. We'll see. Um, but I'm here for Forest being a like Europa possible Champions League team every year because I think I have no ill will towards Forest. All right, who we have? So Villa. Oh God, that's tough. Yeah, so Villa's next at sixth. They're oh man, that's tough. I mean, Emi Martinez leaving and then leaving that parting
yeah,
gift. That's not a good look. So just for the listeners, if they didn't watch today, Emi Martinez, the goalkeeper, former Arsenal goalkeeper Emi Martinez, got a red card at about halftime, like just before halftime. Absolutely just trucked the forward like 20 yards from his goal. Got red carded, so they were playing 10 men for basically the whole game and just couldn't hold off Man U. But there's also a very controversial call, which, I'm not a goalie, so I don't fully understand the rules there, but it looked a little suspect to me. It's just a brutal way to go out. I mean, they lost a lot of money with that decision today. And Emery, former Arsenal, no ill will to him either. I was kind of hoping that Villa and Forest both made it, and Chelsea and Newcastle didn't make it. That was kind of my desired outcome, but didn't end up being that way. You guys have any thoughts?
I'm bummed about the goofy call because if Villa had like tied or won the game, they would have
Hmm.
placed in such a way that it would have given me more points in the table game.
Oh yeah, that's true.
So
I didn't even think about that.
no, I don't have any strong feelings really. I'm I don't know if hater is the right word, but I don't really like Ebi Martinez. But
Mm,
then as like a human being, but then also today I was thinking about how it really is a bummer that we sold him and he would
yeah,
later go on to be like to win best goalkeeper in the world and we sold him to keep Bernd Leno.
yeah, that's a
Um,
tough look.
that's an L for sure.
I'm not sure
I
he
don't
and
know.
he and Arteta would have fully gotten along though, so I feel like he would have left eventually. There's
You're
something about him.
that's a really good point, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Next we got Newcastle. I mean, they did very good this year. They finished fifth, and we all picked them actually to be seventh, so we were all kind of in line. We all knew they were good, but I don't think we fully expected Isak to be as good as he was this year. Because I mean, he's probably the best striker in the league and probably the best player aside from probably Salah, I would say. But he was fantastic this year. Obviously, would love to have him on our team next year, but now that they made Champions League, I doubt that's going to happen. So, I don't know. They always kind of annoy me because they got some dirty players,
Mm-hmm.
Guimaraes and
Guimaraes.
yeah, and Tonali with his all his stuff going on. So, but credit to them. I mean, Eddie Howe, I don't know how he does it. Like somehow just has this like ragtag group of like really good players, but like seemingly dysfunctional, yet somehow gets them to play very well on like a normal basis. Credit for making Champions League, I guess.
Yeah, I would have really loved Isak. I know we were talking about this earlier today, but also at the same time, I kind of like he's one of those players that like when he's playing against your team, it kind of looks like he's just screwing around with everybody. Like
Yeah, yeah,
he just because he's that good,
yeah.
and to see him do that to your team is kind of like, man, I hate that. I hate that he's this good against us. But I don't know. I don't really have any strong feelings one way or another about Newcastle other than really disliking Bruno Guimaraes.
Yeah, still for elbowing Jorginho. Never forget.
Yeah, literally that's it. That's the only that's the only reason.
All right. What's next? Chelsea. So I was a little higher on Chelsea, picking them to finish sixth. They actually finished fourth. I mean, I guess the reason is they have really expensive players that eventually it's going to work out. If you buy 1 million of them, I think you could probably fill the squad. Obviously, the coach from Leicester is a good coach. He had his ups and downs this year, but um, I don't know. I think just it just goes to show you that you can buy your way. I think to a good finish. because I don't think that they were a functional group all year. I don't think they played very well together most of the year, but they still found a way to get enough points to finish fourth, which I don't know. Cole Palmer I think was really good early on, but just totally tanked the last half of the year. So we'll see if he turns into Phil Foden, of last year. That could be a hot take, but I mean, I got to see it from him in multiple years to call him really an elite player. Any thoughts on Chelsea, or you want to move to the final three?
I have thoughts, but Julia, you should go first.
Yes, go.
No,
Please.
you go first.
I thought it was weird. Like, they were so good for a minute there, playing like really transitional, and I thought it was super. Like, I get that, Maresca might want to
Hmm.
control the game and, prevent counters and make the team more stable that way. But when like you have Cole Palmer scoring 4 goals in a single game, like 4 ridiculous goals in a single game, like I wonder how much of that is just like stubbornness on the part of the manager. Like regardless of how like I believe football should be played, if I have players that if I unleash them are gonna score me 4 goals in a game, I'm gonna like I don't know how that's not best for the team. So I don't know. I'm like kind of critical of Maresca for the way he has managed them, I think. I think if they played the second half of the season like they played the first half of the season, they would have placed a lot. I think I
Yeah,
guess they
I mean
already
they
placed
could
like fourth,
they
right?
they could have probably challenged for the league. I think they were playing that well
Yeah.
at the beginning of the year. I don't think
I mean
that's a
they
hot
were
take. Do you
weren't
agree
they
with
first
that?
at one point?
Yeah, they were early on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you agree with that, Julia?
Yeah, they're a weird
Yeah, I mean,
one. They're a weird team. They were so good for such a long stretch, and then I don't know what happened, but I
yeah,
think
I
they
think
say
I
they
think
had a
Cole.
great season.
They I mean, yeah, great. I guess I don't know if Chelsea fans have high expectations, but it might have been. I think Cole Palmer got
I
hurt
like them.
halfway through, and maybe that made them to change for a little while, and they just never kind of fully got back to what they were doing. That could have been it, but yeah, I don't know. But I think they'll be good next year. I think they just kind of have to figure it out. So I'm definitely not worried about
You
them,
think
but
they'll
they're going to
be
be
like
a.
top four again?
I think I'll pick them fourth again next year probably.
Whoa.
Yeah, I think they're that good. I mean, Caicedo is really, really good. I mean, I would have liked him at Arsenal if we didn't get Rice. Obviously, Caicedo came before Rice, but they're both really good players. Glad we have Rice though. He's our player.
Worked out.
Yeah. So the last three, I mean, we probably don't even need to go too much into them because it's pretty straightforward. I mean, Man City, I guess it's a little surprising that they were as bad as they were for a brief stint. We're just not used to it, but you saw towards the end of the season they started playing back to the way they were before. Pep is Pep, right? He's probably the best coach ever, if not at least currently. So they figured it out, and they're probably going to sign some more people over the summer, and they're going to be really good next year. So I think they'll challenge again next year. We got to be wary of them again. Arsenal finished just above them. That would be a whole nother podcast to talk about really the year we had this year. It was very, very polarizing, very up and down, but still very proud, I think, of us finishing second after all the injuries and everything that happened. I just don't think it was in the cards this year. I was less disappointed this year, I think, than I was last year. So I'll put it that way. Obviously, we blew
Yeah.
it a little bit last year. The year before that was just kind of like a random kind of what's the word? Not a fluke, but like nobody was expecting us to challenge for the league that year. We were just happy to challenge for Champions League a couple years ago. So we're making the right progression. If we can sign some people, which we'll talk a little bit about later, I think we have a shot next year. And then obviously Liverpool finished first, but yeah, that wasn't really even close. It was very anticlimactic towards the end of the season. They deserved it though. They played well. I don't really have a one way or another. But we all basically predicted the last three the same, right? I think we picked Man City second, Liverpool third, and Arsenal first. So no changes in points there. But did you guys have any strong feelings on Liverpool or City or anything like that?
I think it kind of, I mean, all across all top three teams, you really see how big of a difference injuries to key players make. I think you see how quickly it destabilized City and Arsenal, and you
Yeah.
look at like the way that Liverpool's players really are so talented, and they've figured out a way to like stay fit. Is like I watch with so much jealousy.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's what happens when you have a big squad too, right? You spend on, you have Endo coming off the bench and being a guy you could rely on, and Diego Jota and Luis Diaz, Darwin Nunez as your
Yes.
backup striker, who's like an $80 million player.
Backbone.
Like, yeah, exactly. So I mean, I think obviously if Arsenal had Havertz the whole year and Jesus the whole year, we probably could have given him a run. But ultimately, I'm not sure we had enough juice this year. It would have been very close.
No, it wasn't
Okay,
the year. Liverpool were so
no,
exciting to watch this year.
I know. Yeah,
Gotta
credit where
say.
credit is due. So the recap, I kind of skipped around a little bit, but Julia finished with 41 points.
Great.
I finished with 47, and David finished with 48, beating me by 1 point.
Come
So
on,
he got the
David.
dub. Yeah, those Crystal or the Everton and the Brighton picking straight like exactly. That was pretty clutch. I think that was the difference maker.
I I really needed a W this season because my fantasy was so bad that Troy and I were in a two-man league, and I was probably changing my team I was playing fantasy. And a few weeks ago, I was like, Troy, I finally pulled ahead of you. And then I looked at Troy's team, and it had been like months since Havertz had gotten injured, and Havertz was still his starting striker. And I was like, oh, word, all right. So after probably the worst fantasy year that I've ever had, this makes it a little bit better.
Oh, I'm glad. I'm glad. Little consolation prize for you.
Good.
Yeah.
All right. So I think we finish it out with just some. I think we'll just do the postseason awards. We'll leave the Arsenal talk. Maybe we'll do that a little bit, like a preseason preview next couple months or something. But we'll start with kind of the postseason awards. I will start with the MVP. It's unanimous from what I see on our Google Doc here. We all picked Mo Salah. I think that one's pretty self-explanatory. He had a generational scoring season. They won the league. Not much else to say. I think one thing I was going to bring up, I think they really benefit from basically allowing him to just play offense. Like I think their structure is so good that they allow him to just lead the break and counterattack, and that saves his stamina and that allows him to do what he does best. And I think it's like genius how they did that. So that's very impressive.
Yeah, he's so
All right.
good.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah, I don't know how he
crazy.
stays so healthy too.
Yeah.
He's a really fit, just good player. I was hoping he would go to Saudi just so he wouldn't be on Liverpool, but that's not that I want Saudi to have any success, but it's more just I don't want Liverpool to have success. It's kind of like the
He's
Harry
a
Kane
player too.
situation. Yeah,
Yeah. He's a player too that makes me wonder really what separates even mid players from good players from great players from generational players, right?
hmm
Because Salah wasn't rated, and then he's done interviews where he's decided, he talks about how he came to a point in his career where he was like, okay, I either do I want to be a good player or do I want to
hmm
be a great player? And before he made that kind of transition, I don't know what he was doing training wise before and after, but he went from again just being pretty good at Fiorentina to being that guy at
yeah,
Liverpool and arguably one of the best players in the Premier League has ever seen. So I mean I just I don't know that there's an answer to that question, but I just would love to know I guess it's just an example of how thin the margins are at the highest level of sport.
for sure. I think he's also just had really good coaches too at Liverpool. Obviously, Klopp was one of the best, and I think Arne Slot's also a really good coach. They figured out how to make it work. Hopefully they get a little bit of complacency next year. Not that they won, but I doubt it. Okay, so next we're going to go breakout player. I mean, this is really cool because it seems like we all had different answers to this, and I think there were a lot of really exciting players this year on some of the mid-table teams. I brought up Mbuemo, which we talked about earlier on. I mean, having a 20-goal season for Brentford is insane. I doubt he stays at Brentford next year. I would love him to be on Arsenal, honestly, as backup to Saka. I would love that, even if we pay 40, 50 million. Obviously Rodrigo would be great and all that, but I think he's a realistic Premier League proven player. Wouldn't be opposed to having him as some backup because we definitely need it because Saka's hamstrings are holding on by a thread. I also said Anthony Robinson. Julia brought him up earlier in the
Why?
podcast. He was so good this year,
That's
and
my guy.
yeah, American, with a heavy British accent, American player. But yeah, I mean Fulham, he really unlocked that attack with his ability to get down the sideline. Really good defender too, but just the pace he has and his ability to cross it, he's just a complete player. Doesn't fit, I think, Arsenal's left back kind of thing, which is a shame because I would love for him to be on Arsenal. But he's definitely going to go to a top 6 team pretty soon. And then David, if you want to go into yours that you wrote down.
Yeah, so I had Delap and Kirkesh. I think Kirkesh is really fun. I
Mm,
feel like he's just the spiritual successor to Andy Robertson, which makes him moving to Liverpool a good fit. I think.
yeah.
Um, I think I just love a player who is down to like they like to attack, but they also love to defend. And I feel like you really get that vibe with Kirkesh where like, yeah, he's absolutely happy to like run and take a player on, but he also like really loves the physical battle in defending. And I just think that's like fun in a sport that, really glorifies the attackers. And then my other one was Delap. I know I talked about him earlier, but I just think he's like a really cool, fun, like to see a young player be like really physically
Mm.
imposing. Like I feel like he's very complete. Like I don't think there's like you look at him and say that he has one really clear weakness in his game. I think he's going to be in the Premier League for a long time, and I think he's going to be like really formidable.
I think he kind of be what Evan Ferguson was supposed to be. I think that would be a good
Yeah, that's a
comparison.
good point.
All right, Julia, who's yours?
I mean, I'm a little having recency bias
Yeah.
from my fantasy team, of course, but I do think that Jacob Murphy had
Mm.
an insane run since the top of this year that like I didn't see coming, but like week in, week out, assists across the board, attacking like crazy. I was very impressed with Jacob Murphy this season. And then similarly, I mentioned earlier already, Clivert and Wood both so consistent. I think the past few weeks since Clivert came back from injury were like a little not up to his usual, but I think he had an amazing season, both of them. So I guess those would probably be the players that like surprised me most and
And
excited.
honestly, I think we kind of glossed over it, but Miles Lewis Skelly is probably a good shout here. We don't want to be too biased with Arsenal, but like I don't think
That's
anybody
true.
expected him to be one of the best left
Mm-mm.
backs in the league at 18 years old. So, but I don't want to make this too much of an Arsenal podcast. I got to watch our biases. But yeah, most underrated player. I'll just talk briefly. It's basically Brentford or one of those teams I usually go for, and I think Damsgaard is probably up there. Like he is just super, super good, super consistent, just perfect midfielder for that team. And I think it's kind of the oil that keeps the machine running and why they're so good because he gets the service to Vissa and Embuemo and makes that kind of that team run. You guys have any thoughts?
I think you're right too, putting Wissa down. I think he had an amazing season up there with like his non-penalty goals were what like
Hmm.
18 or something like that,
Yeah.
which is really wild. So I'd put him up there for sure. I'd maybe put Jared Bowen in consideration as well.
That's a good shout. I think people do not
Mm-hmm.
rate Jared Bowen enough. He is a very good player. What about you, David?
I don't know. So I had a really hard time deciding on this one because I had a lot of players that I thought were really good, but then I was like, well, they did get some attention for what they were doing, so I don't know
Hmm.
if you would necessarily say they were underrated. Like Murillo at Forest, I thought was really good. Who else? There were some more. Sells at Forest also was really good. At Brighton, I thought, what's his name? Is it Van Hecke? Is their center
Yeah,
back?
he's good. He's good.
I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
he's really solid. I thought I think those would be my big ones. I would looked at Spurs because I thought like maybe they would have some. I don't know why I thought maybe they would have something, but I feel like honestly I was just like underwhelmed by most of their team. I thought they should have done better, so I guess not Spurs. Um, yeah, I would probably say someone like Murillo, Van Hecke, um, on Brentford. I also really liked Damsgaard and Vissa. Um, yeah, just let me like list every
Mid-table
player in the
team.
league.
No, understandable, understandable. All right, next, finish it off. I think we'll go most surprising team. I think we already pretty much talked about it. Forest is, I think, everybody's most surprising team. Julia wrote down Bournemouth too. I mean, obviously we picked them to be 18th, so we kind of already went over why they were surprising. But I think it all starts with Forest, with the coach. They found a good coach that fits their system with their players, and he got the most out of them. So good on them. And then most disappointing team. I think it comes down to two. It's pretty obviously the two, and it's either Man U or Spurs. Uh, I mean, I think I'm gonna go Man U just because Spurs won Europa. I know this is an EPL recap, but like I think Spurs will not complain about this year. That's like they're obviously their first big trophy, so they're living on cloud nine right now. So I think it has to be Man U for me.
That's fair. That's probably true.
I say Spurs only because I feel like they have a lot fewer excuses than Man U
Hmm.
does. Like,
Mhm.
I mean, like so much went wrong for Man U. Like they were already so dysfunctional, and then they sacked the manager, and then the new manager again, like I said earlier, like does not excuse me, does not play in a way that you would think would fit their team at all. Whereas like with Spurs, it's just like I don't really know what went wrong for them other than like Ange mismanaging the team.
I think that's totally fair. And then let's finish out with an optimistic teams to watch out for next year. I already talked about Palace. I think they're going to be like what Forest was this year. Maybe not quite to that degree. And I also think Forest is going to continue to be in that top half. So those are the two teams that I want to watch out for next year. What about you guys?
Good question. It's like I
I
need
think
to
it's
decide
Palace for
which
me as
team I
well.
want to be bullish about. David, what do you think?
I think it's Palace for me as well if they keep
Oh,
Eze. I think if they don't keep Eze, I think they'll struggle a little bit. Um, if they don't keep, I definitely think Forest could be dangerous. Um,
Yeah,
hmm,
I'm looking at the table and I'm not sure there's going to be that much movement next year. Like other than probably Spurs and Man U regressing to the mean at least a little bit. I don't think they'll finish this low
yeah.
next year, but like yeah, I don't think there's going to be that much movement. It's
I
a tough
think the
question.
hard part is like, yeah, I feel like the hard part is some of these teams are selling teams, and you would think
Mhm.
that like the standout player, like Kirkesh is going to Liverpool, right? He's a standout player for Bournemouth. Who else? Who are their other standout players? Like, um, I'm pulling their squad up right now because I'm totally
Anya,
blanking on them.
It's
Cliver.
like Cliver, they
Yeah,
have a
Semenyo, excellent
Semenyo.
player.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
And then
Senezi.
the center back that's going to Madrid. So like obviously,
They
yeah,
Yeah.
they'll
they're losing
definitely
a lot
lose
next year.
Kepa, right?
I don't know. I don't know what his contract situation is, but he did really well this year. That's a
Yeah.
surprising player. That might have been a breakout player. I was not expecting to be that good. All right.
Yeah.
Well, I think that about covers it.
Maybe Brighton will go up more.
I say that every year, and they still always finish eighth. So we'll see. I don't know. I
I
don't really
always
wish
like
them.
to I always like to root for them going up more.
We'll see. We'll see. So yeah, we hit the hour mark. Thank you everybody for staying with us for this long, and thank you again for Julie and David for jumping on the podcast. It was really fun. I think maybe in the future we do kind of like a preview of EPL whenever it starts back up. I think that'd be a lot of fun if we can get everybody on that. I think this was a success. So yeah, you guys have any closing thoughts?
Excited for next season.
The life of an Arsenal fan. Excited for next season.
Listen,
I'm
if
ready
we
to get
get
hurt again.
Rodrigo,
It's over.
if we get Rodrigo or Nico Williams, either one, like
We
I'll be
just
happy.
need
That's
one more. We
We
just need a
just need
striker
a
and a winger.
striker. We
yeah.
just need a striker.
We've been saying that for a long time. Well, hopefully we get it. I think we'll be pretty aggressive this summer, and we'll talk about that a little bit later in the preview pod or something. Well, like I said, once again, thank you everybody for listening, and we'll catch you again next time.